Hey everybody, it's your old pal Uncle Phil, and I am continuing to try to make up the passages that I missed while I was traveling. So today I'm making up July the 5th, I believe it was. July the 5th, 2026. Is that right? Let me look at this. I'm looking down. July 5th, yes. And yeah, I had to come in here and finish this up. I think this is all I'll be able to polish off today, but I talked about Romans 6 on the last one, and now is the Romans 7. And this is why Romans 6, 7, and 8 are such an incredible package of verses. And I don't know if 8's going to be next one. And if it is, maybe I'll have to do one more today. But it's so crazy and so beautiful, because if Romans 6 is Paul saying, you need to know who you are. And in fact, if you look, there's this terminology, know, consider, and present. He's like, you need to know that you have been baptized into Christ's death, that you have been bought, God has really gone to great lengths to save you. You need to know this intellectually. And then he says you need to consider it to be true, which is an interesting distinction, that he says, consider yourselves a certain way. So you can have you ever had this where you know something intellectually, but you don't really internalize it as being true? There's a difference between knowledge and sort of, it's in the very fiber of who you are. It's true. It's really true down to your core. I think about floating, and I say this because this is an embarrassing story, but I could not float on my back. I may have told this before on this channel. I don't know. I couldn't float on my back until I was in my 30s. I'm sure now that I've told this story, but I'll tell it again. The point is I took swimming lessons and I did fine except for floating on my back. Couldn't do it. And it was just because the whole lean back into the water and trust the water. I couldn't get there. And I took swimming lessons twice, actually, because they were like, maybe he should take it again. So my mom made me take it a second time. She was like, maybe I'll get it a second time. Still didn't get it. And then she was like, it's fine. He can, if nothing else, I've seen him, dog paddle. He can, he can survive if he falls into a pool. That's the main objective of swim lessons, is he can survive if he falls into a pool. But bottom line is that I really did not, I couldn't do it. And I just kind of faked it. I mean, I went to pool parties, went to lake trips and things like that. And I can swim. I want to be clear. I can swim just fine. Thank you very much. But it wasn't until I was in my 30s. And so I'd quit this job in Seattle and moved back to Texas, sort of in shame, in the sense that, like, I had left Texas to go to Seattle because I was going to, this was the new chapter of my life, and I was going to, the Muppets take Manhattan, Phil takes Seattle, and it's going to change the Pacific Northwest, and this is the trajectory for the rest of my life. And it lasted 18 months, and I was back in Texas, sort of with my tail between my legs and no plan, and living at my mother-in-law's house. Thank you, Grandma Patty, for letting us live at your house, and Papa Doug for letting us live there for 6 months while we figured our shit out. And but they had a pool, and the pool was great because Texas is hot, and so we would swim in the pool. And I remember I was kind of didn't know what I was doing with my life. Didn't have a job. I was trying to figure things out, and I was spending a lot of time with my 2-year-olds in a pool. And I was like, all right, you get some existential thoughts, or I do, and I was finally like, I just had this thing like, okay, maybe it's just because I felt fairly powerless. Like I don't have work to support my family. We don't have a place to live. I don't have a job to go to. It was tough. And I remember I was like, well, I'm going to learn how to float on my back. By God, I'm going to learn how to float on my back. And I did. And and it turns out it was as simple as they said. You just got to lean. But, my issue was I was so tense the first times, which doesn't help with floating, to be completely, so I got to where I'm very good at floating on my back now. I enjoy it. I'll do it just to relax. It feels nice to float on my back. But the point is that it was something where I knew if someone asked me, can human beings float on their back? I'd be like, yes. And they'd be like, okay, so do it. No. Well, clearly there's a disconnect between my intellectual knowledge about floating and the reality of almost like my faith, my belief. I knew it, but I didn't quite believe it on a personal level. So you can know something, and then Paul says, consider it to be true. And then he says, then then present your body, like, so you go from head to kind of heart to your actual behaviors, your actions, right? Present the members of your body for instruments of righteousness. So then do good stuff. Try not to do bad stuff, do good stuff. So it's this package in Romans 6 of know, consider, present. Know intellectually, but then it's gotta filter down to your heart. And then it isn't even then enough in terms of how it affects the world around you. It's not enough to just go, well, I believe this to be true, but it's like, I believe you should love your neighbor. Yeah, but I'm not going to actually love my neighbor. Like, it's a package deal, right? This is the call that we have, is to know it, to make sure it's in the heart, and then show up in the way we live. And that's the sort of the ultimate objective of the Christian life here and now, right? Is to try to live out this call to love one another. Just, kind of the thing. And as I said last week, we're going to be imperfect about it. That's why Paul has to tell us these things. Because if it was automatic, if it just happened the minute you prayed the prayer or got baptized or whatever, if it just was automatic and it just took over, then you'd never fail. Like breathing and heartbeats, they would just happen automatically. But it doesn't happen automatically. It's a process, and it's an effort of the will to go, I need to do the right thing. And that's where we get today in Romans 7. And I mentioned this in the last one. Romans 7 is so important because, and there'll be people, by the way, there'll be scholars who try to write this off and go, well, this is Paul having a flashback to before he was a Christian. First of all, they are not in the majority who say that. And I think that's complete bullshit and a cop-out. And I think it actually, as a guy who studied literature and writing, makes way more sense that it's not a flashback, but it's in fact a very present reality, because the beauty here, especially when you look at 6, 7, and 8, we haven't gotten to 8, and you're like, well, what's in 8? Well, I'm sure we'll get there. But it embraces this incredible, profound, beautiful, horrible tension that we all live in, which is, I want to be one thing, but often I'm not. And so that's what he gets to here. He says, I don't understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Man, you been there? I don't do the thing I want to do. I do the very thing I hate. I hate this. You ever woken up and you're like, today's going to be different. Whatever it is, take your pick. I'm going to finally quit smoking. That was one that for years, I was like, I'm not going to smoke anymore. Today, I'm not going to smoke. When I was a kid, it was, I'm not going to say curse words. Not going to lust after a girl in my French class. Whatever it is, you take your pick. Whatever the thing is, you're like, today's going to be different. And then maybe you have a few good hours, and then you crash, and it's all a disaster, and you're like, what happened? I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Now, if I do what I do not want, I agree that the law is good. So if I do the bad thing, I'm actually saying, well, we just need to be under law. We need to have speed limit signs and law that comes crashing down on us because we did bad things. But in fact, it's no longer I that do it, but the sin that dwells within me. Now, this is not Paul saying the devil made me do it. This is not him saying I get a out of jail free card. It's not actually me. It's sin inside me. He's going to completely own the sin. Trust me. For I know that nothing good dwells in me. See what I mean? Nothing good dwells in me. That is within my flesh. Like, I don't wake up in the morning feeling like I can do the right thing. That's what Paul's saying. I don't wake up and go, I got this. I know that what I have inside me is bad. Now, I got to just pause here, because a lot of people really don't like this talk. We live in a world where people don't want to feel bad about themselves. They don't want to be told they're bad. They don't want to be told they've done anything wrong. They certainly won't talk about sin or depravity or anything like that. We're just supposed to affirm everybody and say everybody's awesome. And here's the thing. Everybody is an image bearer. Everybody is an image bearer. God says, I'm going to create human beings in my image, male and female. I'm going to create all of you in my image, right? So somehow the image of God contains both masculinity and femininity and the whole bit. And like, he's like, I'm putting myself in my image in all of you. So does that involve our gender, our morality, our creativity, I don't know, everything. But it's got to be significant because God's putting his literal image in humans, all humans. So on one hand, humans are amazing, and what is this? The psalmist says a little below the angels. Like we're absolutely incredible. On the other hand, we're a disaster, right? Like we do terrible things. We are destroyers and killers and haters. And so it's this, again, this tension, this juxtaposition of these two things. So I know people are like, golly, I don't like this passage because Paul's being so like, nothing good dwells in me. I don't want to feel shame. But watch what Paul does, because he's just said you're actually completely new. And again, if you see what's going to come in Romans 8, it's pretty fantastic. So just trust me, don't stop here. This is the problem. When you read one verse out of context, you're like, no, not how that works. So just stick with me here. Stick with me. Don't give up. For I know that nothing good dwells in me, that is in my flesh. I can will what's right, but I can't do it. Like I can say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do the right thing, and then I don't do it. I can't do it. For I do not do the good that I want, but the evil I don't want is what I do. Now, if I do what I don't want to do, it's no longer I that do it, but the sin that dwells in me. So I find it to be a law that when I want to do what's good, evil is close at hand. So I want to do what's right. Somehow there's this thing in me that goes, nah, don't want to. Don't do it. Screw all that. Don't do it. And here's the thing. I think all of us know that feeling. For I delight in the law of God in my inmost self, but I see in my members another law at war with the law of my mind, making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members. So he says, what I've got is a war waging inside of me. And again, he says, I've got a mind, I've got my members of my body, I've got this whole thing going on, and it's just churning. And he goes, oh, it's a war, it's a battle all the time. And he goes, wretched man that I am. This is such a frustration. Who will rescue me from this body of death? Who will rescue me? And then look what he says. Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then with my mind, I'm a slave to the law of God, but with my flesh, I'm a slave to the sin. This one little thing in this whole section, it's all this sort of sad, negative frustration. And then there's one, thanks be to God. Because in all of this, what he comes back to is there is actually hope. There is actually something. And this is why there is something that's bringing grace to my world. And this is why Paul's important, complicated, difficult at times, contradictory at times, but the heartbeat of Paul's message is one of grace, is one of God's grace. And you can read this, and what I love is this so humanizes Paul, because Paul gets used and weaponized for people who want to get on their high horses. But when I read this, I go, Paul wasn't on a high horse, because Paul was like, look, I know myself, and I can be a right bastard. I can be a total piece of shit. However, thanks be to God, this battle that is a very much reality. So the thing he just talked about in Romans 6 about no, consider, present, this is how you ought to live. I'm living out the struggle of that one too, everybody. I'm experiencing it. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. And it's a struggle you face, just period, full stop. It's going to be something you face your whole life. And I'm not going to tell you it's going to get easier. I'm just going to tell you it's going to be consistent. And some days are better than others, but you will, I don't think you ever reach a point where you go, I never struggle with that anymore. I'm always great to everyone. I'm always fantastic. I'm always amazing. I just reached the point where I am just fully spiritually awesome 100% of the time. Well, I don't think so. I'm going to bet against that one. Nope. I think it's going to be a struggle. From what I've heard from the people who've grown old around me, it doesn't go away. It may change its form. It may change its outlet. It may change how it plays out, but it's real the whole way. Real the whole way. So I think this is an important passage to keep in mind, because I love that Paul is like, look, I've just given you these instructions, said you should really, really present your body as members of righteousness. You really should be trying to do the right thing. But then he shows up in 7 and goes, but I just want to be clear. It's a battle, and nobody feels the struggle more than me. Nobody feels the struggle more than me. I fight it all the time. I feel a literal war being waged inside of me. And to me, that's not discouraging, that's encouraging. If no less than the Apostle Paul can go, this is a fight the whole time, then I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. That sort of makes sense then. All right. Then I should expect it too. Kind of like when Jesus said, if they're going to call me a devil, what do you think is going to happen for you guys? Like this is to be expected. And I don't find any of that discouraging. I find it encouraging, because what blindsides me is when I thought everything was going to be great and then I got kicked in the ass. That's when I get really discouraged. If I go in and go, this will likely be difficult, but worth it. This will be hard, but worth it. And I think that's Paul's whole pitch. It's hard, but it's worth it. Why? Because it's better to live under the law of grace than the law of law. Grace is not really a law in the sense that law is. But he's like, it's better to be under grace than under law. That's always going to be better. That's what you want. So there you go. There's this week's, I should just look now and see. Because if the 5th, then I got to go to the 12th, and I'm going to see what it says. If it's Romans 8, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to go berserk. Let's see. Oh, there it is. But it's not even the whole thing. It's not the whole thing. It's so, oh my gosh, 12th, and then is the 19th. The 19th going to be the final bit of, let's see. Oh, it just continues on. 12th, 19th, and then 26. I know I'm making you watch me look up things on an iPad, which is just super fun for you. I know. But you know what? I think it's okay. I think you know. Oh my gosh, the next 3 weeks. The next 3 on Romans 8 are just bananas. So just take it from me, guys. 6, 7, and 8 are such an important package of ideas. And I love that the Book of Common Prayer is going to take 8. It took 6 for a couple of weeks. It took 7 for 1 week, and it's going to take 3 weeks to get through 8, because 8 is so dense with really, truly, joyfully good news. So just trust me. Okay, trust me. Don't trust me. Trust God. But this has a happy ending. It really does. It has a happy ending. So with that said, remember, God loves you. Grace is really good. God's grace is really good, and it's here for you. And it's going to be hard, but that's what grace is for. It's a struggle for all of us, even the best of us, even the ones you think have it all figured out, like Paul, say it's a struggle. So it's okay if you're struggling, man. It's okay. It's all right. It's how that goes. We're going to keep trucking. We're going to keep plugging along. All right? Recovery's everything. God loves you no matter what, period, full stop. And I wish grace, peace, and love for everyone.